Suzanne, I'm excited today because I'm going to get a special kind of geek on. Don't you think?
I think you are like in your element of geekiness.
Huh?
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality. Everybody, welcome to No Vacancy Live. This time, not live, also not with Anthony, but you got me, Glenn Hausman, and even better, you've got Dr. Producer Suzanne. Susie, how are you today?
I am fantastic. Thanks for having me, or thanks, Anthony, for being on the road to make me get to hang out with you, Glenn.
Yeah, exactly. So listen, one of the things that I love most is theme park design. When I was a kid, I loved roller coasters and stuff like that, but theme park design and how rides and attractions and it all comes together and its focus on consumer behavior has always been so interesting to me. I love design. I love consumer behavior. I love theatrics and all of this stuff. And it's so cool. And today we're going to be talking to someone that has an integral part of designing that. And it couldn't come at a better time, Suzanne, because I think that right now, this period of time might be the greatest period in history for theme park design since, I would say, July of 1955 when Disneyland opened. What says you? I know you can't stop talking about theme parks. And by can't stop, I mean never mention it. Yeah.
How do I have time to mention it? You're on top of it. Weren't you just at a theme park last week and didn't invite me again?
Yeah, that's right. That's because I can't have people slowing me down, particularly if you're going to bring one of your kids around. I got stuff to see. I had to go see some Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff like that going on. All right, so let's get right to it. I don't want to take up any more silliness over here. Let's bring Ryan Harmon onto the show, President and Chief Creative Officer, Zeitgeist Design and Production. They're creating some of the thrills, spills, chills, designs, all of that kind of stuff that you folks out there have loved and experienced. Ryan, I'm so freaking glad we finally have a chance to talk.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, you guys. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. So, all right. So you guys in your organization is really both in your current state and throughout your careers helped create and craft incredible theme park attractions. Now, in my introduction, I said, I think that we are at the greatest period ever since the modern theme park was invented on that day in July of 1955 when Disneyland first opened, right? First of all, you got the explosion around the world. Second of all, you got Disney claiming they're going to do something eventually. And third of all, you've got Epic Universe in Orlando opening, which all eyes are on. How are you feeling about the state of theme parks, and how cool is it you found a career in this kind of the business?
Well, I don't want to, it's not just theme parks, it's experience.
Themed entertainment and experiences. All right, so Ryan, now I'm going to have to talk for another 30 seconds. Since the Great Recession in 2007, 2008, we've really shifted more to an experience economy. That's why all your hotels are filled all the time, because people want experiences. They don't need things. Take it away, Ryan.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. People want cosplay. They want to immerse themselves in stories. Frankly, they want to escape reality a little bit. And especially post-COVID, people want to be out amongst other people. They don't want to sit in their homes anymore. You know, VR has not taken off as it was predicted. People want experiences. Let's put down our phones and let's immerse ourselves in spectacular worlds and stories. That's what it's all about. And I think it's always been that way. If you think about restaurants in the 50s when the Polynesian theme was big, people started going to these more immersive experiences. A lot of restaurants didn't even have windows because you were immersed in this dark room with your vinyl booths and your low lighting. And,
Right.
Walt Disney looked at Tivoli Gardens. He looked at, other things around the world, and he created a park where families could immerse themselves in stories and history and have fun together. And I think
let me just tell the audience real quick. For those of you who don't realize, the story about Disneyland goes, he was sitting in a park. They would do daddy-daughter day, and they were on a carousel. He was on a bench, and he thought about, what if we could do these things together? Please continue.
Yeah, it was boring sitting there eating peanuts, and people like me.
I dream of that right now, sitting on a bench and eating peanuts.
Yeah, so I think it kind of started in Europe. I think it came to America with Playland at Rye and Coney Island, and then Walt created something much more immersive, historical, and story-based. And that has taken off around the world. We've seen copies of Disney attractions in Korea, in China, in Europe. And now people love experiences. That's why we're seeing escape rooms and things like that, a little shorter, but they've gotten very expensive. And I think what we talk about at Zeitgeist is what is there between a Disney or Universal park and a Chuck E. Cheese. One thing is, $1,000 or more for my, family. Yep. And one, I'm going to get COVID and eat bad pizza.
Yeah. I will say, in 1982, I did love myself a little Chuck E. Cheese, but we got more sophisticated. The area you're talking about is where companies like I see like Merlin being, for example, right? They do a lot of themed entertainment. You've got like those sea life aquariums that are out there. All of these things that you might get at your mega mall as they kind of transition from just a place of shopping to a place to have many experiences. That's kind of the zone you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and I've spent some time in your world. I worked for Rick Caruso for a number of years. I wore my suit and tie every day and went to the Grove here in LA.
Yep.
We worked on Americana at Brand and other projects that have yet to come to fruition. But yeah, it's all about aspiration, giving people an aspirational experience. Even in your life, if you think about the top attractions at, let's say, a Disney Castle Park, you can race through outer space, Space Mountain. You can experience a runaway mine train, Big Thunder. You can go back in time with Pirates of the Caribbean, explore a haunted house, haunted mansion. None of these are based on movies or TV shows. These are about human aspirations. And what Rick Caruso is brilliant about is creating an experience where you might feel like you're in Europe for an afternoon or in Italy, and you dine at an outdoor cafe, you ride a trolley car, there's musical fountains. It's very aspirational. Maybe you feel wealthy. Maybe you feel like you've escaped to Europe. Whatever it is, people really love that. It's a little bit of a getaway from their everyday life. And more, we're seeing the numbers of theme parks keep going up, even though the prices are ridiculous now. Just a park is $35.
I know
that you used to get 2 or 3 people into the park for that. So,
hey, I remember when there were ticket books, Ryan.
Exactly.
And by the way, if anyone ever hears the expression an e-ticket ride, that's actually where it comes from. Disney opened up with ticket books, A through E.
Until the 80s.
I remember when they switched over.
Yeah.
That was pretty
There's
cool.
a lot of argument to go back because now everything's a level playing field, while then the e-ticket actually costs more, so that attraction could justify a higher budget.
Right? They call that, they changed that to Lightning Lane. That's the new.
That's a different thing. No. Once everybody started staring at their phones in theme parks, that was not a good thing.
No. So, Ryan, but before we get into that, all of that nitty gritty, our main audience is hotel developers, designers, operators, all of that kind of stuff. What do you think about today's modern day hotel experience, and where are some obvious places you think we could put a little bit more zing into the experience quotient?
Well, here's a true story. I got a call, Glenn, from somebody at a big hotel chain, probably one of your viewer companies, and they said they had a property in Jamaica that was floundering a little bit, wasn't doing great. Could we come up with some ideas to help them? And I said, absolutely, turn it into a pirate hotel. Let's get some rum bars. Let's have a pirate ship that can sail out. Let's theme it more like a pirate village, like you're actually in Pirates of the Caribbean. Everybody has Talk Like a Pirate Day. Renaissance fairs are all about pirate days. People love dressing up, wearing the eye patch. This would be a destination resort for families where they can cosplay a little bit, have fun. Of course, you have your spa and, all that stuff, but it's fun. It's basically, this was before Disney did the Star Wars hotel, which is a different story, but that's where things are going, Glenn. People want immersion. Hotels that maybe are not doing great because they're not in the perfect location in a city or right on the beach or whatnot, consider telling a story. It's very simple. It's not a super expensive overlay, and you become a one-of-a-kind world destination for people to go. And so this conversation, these people basically said, we think people come here for the spa and the brand. And I'm like, no, no, people would come there because it's a pirate hotel.
But that's a challenge, man, to get people out of their traditional way of thinking and bring them into this modern way of thinking, of tethering experience to everything that you create.
Yeah, but overnight experiences are what is next. Star Wars Hotel did not do great for various financial reasons and models of operation, but all of the major theme park projects I have been called in to develop, conceive, work on, have hotel rooms sprinkled into the park so you can actually sleep in your favorite world. You know, imagine sleeping in DC Comics, you know, Gotham City or whatever, you know, we're talking about in Indiana Jones world, whatever. But, you know, that's where things are
for
going.
me, it would be My Little Pony, but that's just me.
Well, keep that quiet, Glenn. But, but you know, that people will pay a premium for that as well. And I think, sorry.
Yeah, Ryan, you're absolutely right about that premium pricing. And the whole notion is, how do you connect better emotionally with your customer? And if you're able to make that emotional connection, then you're freeing yourself up from being on a commoditized pricing. Suddenly you're the place you want to be, they want to be, as opposed to being the place that happens to be where they are. Right, Ryan?
Well, and here's another fact. I've been planning a vacation with my kids this summer, and I go on all the websites and I look at all the hotels, and really, I don't know the difference between any of them. You know, the square footage might be a little different, the bed size, you know.
I can't tell the difference between 384 and 412 square feet. It's not making a difference.
Exactly. But if I clicked on one that was a, you know, Victorian hotel in Paris, and it had the decor and the wallpaper, and it made me feel like I was back in the era of Jules Verne or something, all of a sudden that stands out to the consumer. And I would probably pay more to have that experience than to stay at the Hilton or the Marriott down the street, because I want an experience, especially with my kids. And if I'm going to Paris, you know, here's another story. I was in, I got sent to Osaka for to work on Universal Studios theme park there about 12 years ago. They put us up at the beautiful Ritz-Carlton, and I go in the Ritz-Carlton, we go in our room, and there's, you know, copy paintings of British hunters on horseback with hounds. And I'm like, what does this have to do with Osaka?
Well, you know, that my uncle painted those.
Well, they're beautiful paintings, but they have nothing to do
no sense of place. And you're in the place-making business, Ryan, be it you know, theme park, local attractions, or even on the sea through what your team's done through like the cruises, for example. So let me just throw out some projects your folks have been involved with, either in this organization or private or personally. You know, Typhoon Lagoon, Disney Quest, Mystic Manor, which I would love to see one day. A lot of different theme parks around the world, BBC Earth theme park. Let's see, the Dive Interactive Simulator ride, Saudi Arabia stuff. So you've been all over the global footprint. So I think the first question I have for you on this, and then Suzanne, cut me off at any time to get a word in here, is
okay. This is your round. Go for it.
What is the baseline through all humanity that we all share that you're able to capitalize on when creating experiences?
It's emotion, Glenn. People want to feel emotion. Some of my most successful projects, I did a Titanic movie tour based on the film, where I re-edited the finale of the romance with the sinking, put people in boats, and people cried.
Wow.
I did a show for manatees at SeaWorld in Orlando. It was about a dad and little girl on the shore talking about the manatees swimming around and how boat motors cut them up and, you know, hurt these sweet creatures. People cried. People want to feel, just like a great movie, people want to feel emotion. And that is common throughout the world, whether it's love, you know, the universal language of music, They want to feel things. And same thing for hotels, shopping centers. Give me a story, give me something to aspire to, give me emotion. And that's the universal language for sure.
So give us an example of a project you're working on right now. Let's talk about the creative process behind all of that.
Well, right now we're working on a couple of what we call dark rides.
I love dark rides.
In a building where you can control the theatrical lighting and the story and the music and all that. For our client in China, they own a project called the Chimelong Spaceship, which is this beautiful, awesome, high-tech, 2-meter long building that oh yeah, it's everybody Google Chimelong Spaceship. It's insane, and it's in Zhuhai, China, and it houses a lot of live animals and sea life. It's sort of an extension of their Ocean Kingdom park, which is right outside, but we're moving it a little more towards a space theme, and so we've developed 2 attractions. So the process is basically, for them, we're dealing with an existing space. A lot of times we just have dirt, which is great, but these are indoor attractions. And so we look at the space they have, we get the drawings, we measure it, we might make a model. We actually made a little foam core model to really understand it. We developed story ideas. Should it be about this? Should it be about this? Usually we give the client 3 to 5 options, just high concept with some sketches or image boards. They usually will pick 1 or 2, and then we take those to the next level. So, okay, we need to have this kind of vehicle. We might research ride vehicles with different manufacturers. It can go this speed for safety and because the way it's designed. And what is the story we're telling? What would the first story point be? You know, when you get in the queue, what is the first scene? What is the second scene? That's an old version of it, but
now, so we'll peel it off then.
Yeah.
That's tell them to update their websites.
Yeah. So you develop the sequence of scenes, whether there's characters and the animatronics, are we using projection, are there scenics, you know, what are the technologies we're employing for this attraction? And obviously, what is the guest experience? You are the one on the ride, so everything has to happen to you. You don't want to just be a passive visitor, especially nowadays. We all love Pirates of the Caribbean and Haunted Mansion, but they're very passive. And you know, but you have an experience. You go down the drops, and things do happen to you. And so we want to know what happens to you. What do you go through? What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? What's the story? So another example is we just developed this massive development in Paraguay, and they have this island outside Asuncion, Paraguay, the capital, and they wanted a theme park, water park, retail entertainment center, district, arena, casino, and hotel. So we took the site, we brought in one of the best master planners in the world. We master planned it. I developed the concept for the park and the water park. And as I was developing the retail entertainment center, which is central, like a City Walk or a Downtown Disney, my initial pitch was to celebrate Paraguay. And as I'm pitching it to the client, they're saying, well, you know, we want people to come here very often, and it's really geared towards locals.
Right.
Well, if I live in Paraguay and I do a Paraguay theme, that's like putting California Adventure in
or putting Pirates of the Caribbean in Florida, which they actually didn't want to do. They're in the Wild West expedition, but everyone demanded it.
Right. So I said, wait a minute, what if this was more a microcosm of the earth and people could come here and feel like they went on a trip for the day?
Right.
So what if we juxtapose, you know, Spain next to France, next to Italy, next to Japan, next to China, next to Africa? And they loved that. And so we spent months developing how you do that without it looking like a mess.
Yeah. And listen, and if people are really into it, you can get a drink in each one of those different.
Well, we've got bars, we have restaurants, we have a pagoda, you can go dine in. And so that came about, again, by understanding, always understanding the audience. Who are they? What do they want? The client, unfortunately, can contradict the audience. The audience may want one thing, but if you've got a client or a chairman who has a vision, he's writing the checks.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes they don't do what they should do, but we help them, and doesn't always work.
You can only bring a horse to water.
Exactly.
Suzanne, you got to ask a question here. Otherwise, I'm going to monopolize everything.
Well, I would say from one of the newer kind of mindsets or mind shifts in different spaces to go in between the Chuck E. Cheese and the Disney World. Places like American Dream Mall, an opportunity like that. How do you start infusing with clients that are writing checks the opportunity to provide this middle ground experience that the consumers are craving for different opportunities?
And before you answer that, that mall that you referred to is just like Mall of America outside Minneapolis. It's just at the Meadowlands in New Jersey. Right. Water park, indoor theme park, indoor ski slope. Check our episode during COVID where we broadcast from there, blah, blah, blah. Ryan, continue, please.
Yeah, that particular property has, a very storied past. It was a Mills Mall. It was Xanadu. It was a bunch of different things that went
all just not opened for decades.
Right. So, I think they went with more traditional mall, and then they look for these attractions to put in, usually tenant spaces. So when it's a tenant, obviously that's different than the developer having the vision that, this whole mall is going to be like a spaceship and we're going to theme all the interiors. They didn't do that. It's pretty traditional.
And the thing that's holding them back was their development immediately after like 9/11, when that all started to take off. They were still rooted in the way we were thinking of design decades ago. It's the same thing with the Fontainebleau in Las Vegas. If you look at it, because it was designed 20 years ago, it doesn't necessarily meet all the needs of today's consumer. So please continue, Ryan.
Yeah. So a lot of malls like that, when they're looking for tenants, so what means it's incumbent upon people like you and me to invent a business and have the capital to rent a space and put your, attraction in there and take a major risk. And unfortunately, there's very few who have been able to do that. And, I don't know if we're there yet. I've seen, it does a water park that has DreamWorks characters peppered around it. Is that an immersive experience, or is that desirable to the majority? I don't know.
Well, I think the problem is that it's super expensive to create something that's highly immersive and top notch, something that Disney could do or Universal could do, one of those types of companies. So when you're bringing it down to a smaller audience, you have to maybe make some sort of compromises that, you may not have a successful entry. I was dying to check out the new SpongeBob SquarePants ride that's at Circus in Vegas. I was there. I was curious as to how they managed to straddle being a smaller budgeted project. Just guessing, I just figure it's not $100 million versus being able to deliver on that expectation that people have that go and visit Universal or Disney, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. When you don't have the masses coming to one place and paying a gate fee, now you're hoping that people come to your mall or your casino or whatnot and are willing to put out the money. And so what a lot of developers or owner operators do is they look for IP, intellectual properties, because they believe that if people have watched the show or seen the movie or bought the comic book, that they're going to be more likely to spend on this. I argue that's not true. It is in some cases, in some markets, but again, Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, Big Thunder, Space Mountain, Sun Cruise, these are not based on IPs. Some of them became IPs later after the experience was already created. So again, create something that is immersive and that people aspire to do, that you dream of doing, fulfill a fantasy. I think that can work much better than licensing Cartoon Network.
I completely
I love
agree with
that.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like the modern companies of today have taken an over-reliance on IP out of either cheapness, laziness, inability to be creativity, and are making the excuse that say people will only sell an IP. But you're right, man. Pirates of the Caribbean, Haunted Mansion, all of those, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, I could go on and on and on and on until into the Iger era at Disney, where that started to really change. Now, they created places that people wanted to go because of their creativity and originality, not because it was associated for something that they probably didn't see at the box office.
Right. So why has nobody created a haunted hotel, a real haunted hotel? There is a project in San Diego called the Haunted Hotel, but that's an attraction. I'm talking about a full size, 800 key hotel that's, maybe it's Vegas, maybe it's about the Bugsy Siegel era, maybe it's about gangsters, maybe they haunt the place. There's special effects in the mirrors in your hotel room. There's weird things that happen in the hallways. There's, like combine a hotel with Tower of Terror without the thrill ride.
Yeah. Right.
This would be huge. I would invest money in a well-done haunted hotel. It would be a signature, resort or hotel, wherever it is, and people would flock to it if it's done right. Execution is another thing. Just because it's a great idea, let's look at the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
One that happened in, was it Scotland or something?
Yeah, it's coming to LA. Why? It was so poorly executed. It looked like they had $1.98, and they took a great intellectual property, and I don't know if it was licensed or what the story is there, but
I don't think it was licensed, and I don't think they leveraged the name. They did sound alike type stuff.
Right. Okay, right.
Yeah,
but still, execution is at least 50%, right, or more. If it's not done right, it's not going to work.
The good news is, Ryan, I think people have become more sophisticated on the creation side of it and are figuring out how to do things better. I just think about haunted concepts during Halloween time and the Christmas decorations in my area here on Long Island. I feel like they become much more, into doing these sorts of things. There's a lot of people out there, so it can be done right. And it doesn't necessarily have to be expensive if you're creative. I think about Pirates of the Caribbean, where they created the flame effect, right? By like having a sheet and a light and a fan or a fan. Right.
And half the rock work in there is just crunched up fabric. That's all, as I've walked through there, you touch it, you're like, oh my God, it's just muslin. It doesn't have to cost a lot, but you've got to be creative, right? You got not the bean counters, love you, cannot run projects. It has to be overseen by creative director.
So what's the key to creating a highly immersive environment such as what Epic Universe is doing today? I had a chance to visit Super Nintendo World in LA, and I understand that they have a much smaller footprint. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're going to be able to do in Orlando. The Monsters universe looks pretty awesome. Knowing, people are going to love more Harry Potter, How to Train Your Dragon, and I was there. And then there's the Celestial Park. Am I missing one section? I feel like I might be. How to Train Your Dragon,
Monsters, How to Train Your Dragon, Harry Potter. There's one more. Super Nintendo, and Celestial. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I have not had the opportunity to work on it. My partner Joe did for a while. My friend Steve Tatham is the head of that project, and I am blown away by the scale of the buildings and the size of everything. And I mean, I think Epic is a perfect name for it because I think it's going to blow everybody's minds. I question some of the IPs, whether they're still relevant or, we always strive at Zeitgeist for timeliness and timelessness. And, some of those, I'm not sure they're definitely timely, or are they? Or are they timeless? I don't know. But those are corporate decisions. But it looks like the execution is going to be spectacular. And I think Disney should be concerned because Universal now has 3 full-day theme parks, a water park, the retail entertainment center, shopping, so many hotels.
I agree. I unfortunately feel like Disney's been resting on their petard for the last number of years. They had an opportunity to do it. And to be fair to them, they have opened up many attractions in this time. However, when you're opening up a brand new theme park and you don't have something to respond to it that's impressive-ish, then you're going to lose the narrative out there. That being said, Ryan, I was very fortunate enough to have a speaking engagement at a hotel at Disney Springs. So obviously I had to go check out some of the parks while I was
Of course you did.
I was there last week.
Were you? We were probably passing by each other.
Yeah.
So I finally got myself on Guardians of the Galaxy, and I thought that was really executed very, very well.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that I'm old and the turning and stuff like that made it difficult for me to manage my stomach and the experience at the same time.
I read it and I couldn't talk to anybody the rest of the evening. I had to go back to the seriously. I was so
poor thing
and nauseous.
Yeah. Well, I'd heard that might be a thing, so I didn't eat or drink for a few hours beforehand. Yeah. But it's really beautiful. It's beautifully well executed. I love things. I love those rides that really go over the top and make you forget everything. I'll say at Animal Kingdom, though I didn't visit it this time, the Navi River journey is something that I really appreciate more over time. It's a little short, but it is what it is. But it's really well executed. I think they did a nice mix between practical effects, that incredible animatronic at the end, and then digital highlights that didn't make you go, oh, screen. It just kind of all blended in. What are some examples of some major attractions that we all know and love that you're a big fan of or had a part of that you think was really executed properly, and why?
My favorite theme park in the world is Puy de Faux in France. Puy de Faux is a park out in the woods. There's no concrete or asphalt. It's all decomposed granite. There's live animals. There's fountains and forests, and the most amazing shows you've ever seen in your life. Like the way I'd say it, after I left Puy de Faux, it was like someone took a microchip of ideas I'd never had and stuck it in my brain, because I never knew you could do the things that they do there. There's no rides, which I think they could add a few rides, but there's no rides right now. And you still have an entire day and the nighttime show in the summertime that has a cast of 2,500 people, by the way. I mean, everything about this, there's a show with a castle and then a wall in front of it, and the entire wall sinks into the ground and the castle slides forward. And you're like, what?
Wow.
There's a performance in a theater where there's dancers, and all of a sudden the stage floods, and now they're dancing in ankle-high water. And you're like, where did the water come from and where does it go? So,
wow.
Well, yeah, look at that. An entire Roman arena. There's the dancing show.
So this is totally different idea on what we hear in America when we hear the word theme park.
It's very French. Everything's in French, but they have this ingenious system where you can use your AirPods and your phone, and it's translated in real time to multiple languages.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. And then they have a nighttime production called Cinecine. That's how it started. And it's mostly volunteers from the local area, 2,500 people. And I believe the seating is like 14,000 or something. Wow. And the stage is like a mile. There's a castle and a lake and a windmill and flames and fireworks. And I mean, if anybody has a chance to go to France, go to Puy de Faux. It will change your life. It really
wow.
That's one of my favorite things in the world. And also, I don't know if you've heard of Team Lab. Team Lab is a Japanese experience that there's one in Tokyo. They're opening one in Saudi Arabia. There might be a couple others. And it's an artist experience, but it's fully immersive, and it's an experience for the guests. So, for example, the one in Tokyo that I took my kids to was called Planets, I believe. Mm-hmm. The first thing you did was you entered a locker room, put your shoes and socks in a locker, rolled up your pants. And the first experience is walking up a hill with rocks in a waterfall, which kind of cleans your feet.
Right.
But that's the whole idea. And in
love that.
You know, we all have in Japan, people don't wear shoes in a lot in Japan. So maybe it only works there, but you walk up a waterfall, then you go in this room with these big overstuffed black, I don't even know what they are. And you have to walk to a door on the other side. And it's really hard because you keep falling over, and it's really fun. And then you walk into this giant room with mirrors where there's water up to your knees and projections of fish everywhere. And you just walk around, and there's music playing, there's about 8 different experiences, I think, and they're all mind blowing.
You know what? This sounds a lot like Meow Wolf at Area 15 in Las Vegas. I haven't been to either, so
It's different. It sounds a little bit like it the way I'm describing it, but
right.
it's a completely different experience. Meow Wolf is cool, but I'm not sure anybody understands any story there, so it really
yeah, but I'm not necessarily sure that was the goal either of that particular project. I don't know enough to say.
I don't know.
I do know enough to say, Ryan, I love what Area 15 is doing.
Yes,
I
yeah.
love that they're taking experiences to the next level in Las Vegas and really kind of reinventing it in such a 2024 kind of way. For example, those that don't know, Universal is putting a permanent horror house exhibit there. It's been tried on the Las Vegas Strip before with, I'm forgetting the guy who did it, but it's a Rainforest Cafe now on the Strip, right above the Taco Bell Cantina, the floor upstairs, right? I think it's right by Planet Hollywood area. Anyway, I'll think of it at some point. But I think that's really interesting over there. How do you think about that complex over there and its ability to maybe open up in other markets, like maybe that Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex or something?
Yeah, well, they have announced, I believe, another one in Orlando. And I think it's pretty brilliant because they really took a major risk taking over a huge warehouse or putting a huge warehouse out in the boonies of Las Vegas. It's not easy to get to. It's in some weird industrial area
it's like 2 miles away, but it's on the other side of the highway, so it might as well be in California.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So that's a big risk. Everybody would tell you, oh, nobody leaves the Strip. Everyone stays on the Strip, maybe downtown, but no one's going over there. Not true. They put something truly compelling there with the Omega Mart, with a number of other experiences. And the other cool thing is it's free to get in.
Yeah.
And I think nowadays, still finances are a big thing for people. And if I could take my kids for free, there's not a lot to do for free. Obviously, you need to cough up money at some point, but you can go have lunch or a drink, be in a cool arcade. There's, the axe throwing thing. There's a golf thing. There's a lot of small attractions in there. But the expansion with the balloon is cool. The projection space, I know the distillery was awesome. And sadly, they shut down a few weeks ago.
They had to shut down because of COVID-related issues, not because of what they were doing today. Just so from what I've read about that story, they had a lot of debt that they just couldn't get out from. Right. Yeah. So they were still doing well in today's environment. So it's not like they weren't popular. It's just that the stuff didn't pencil out. I'm really heartbroken that they went out of business.
Yeah. So then they're opening up on the backside. That's where the Universal will go. I think there's a Lionsgate John Wick attraction. So this is fun that there's now a palette where companies can try their projects. And I don't know if there's sharing of the cost or how that works, but it's become a destination where you can go. You don't have to be 21, obviously, and you can have a fun time. So I think that was a great idea, and we'll see how it works in other markets.
And one of the cool things, Ryan, about having this conversation about theme parks and the attractions that you've built, there's so many of those technologies, how they wind up working their way into sectors in the hospitality industry.
Right.
Well, I'm just immediately thinking projection mapping and how cool you can make events look for your conference for example, right?
I've done a lot of corporate events too with projection mapping and screens, just the technology of having flat screens. We did a bunch of them where we put them behind the front desk at various hotels, and I created media, unique to that destination and that city. Sometimes it's appropriate in a high-tech type hotel. Sometimes maybe not so much, like the Hotel Del Coronado in San Diego.
Unless you're going to do because it's a haunted hotel, unless you're going to do the image of the woman waiting for her her fiance to return from sea in the window or something like that, right?
So walking into this beautiful space with these bright modern screens.
Yeah. I also just want to keep people away from over-relying on screens. There's a lot of better ways to do place setting. I think Universal went too far in the screen world and is now pared back on it and finding the right appropriate balance. So I'm forward to something.
Technology should be magic. That's what we say at Zeitgeist. Don't let them see the technology. the technology is just a tool to tell a story. So you don't want to see the lights, you don't want to see the speakers, you don't want to see the projectors, you don't want to see a rectangular screen, unless you're in, telling a sci-fi story or something, But it's
Ryan, one cool effect that I loved, and this beyond the Pepper's Ghost thing that we see everywhere. I loved when they did the talking paintings for the first Forbidden Journey Harry Potter ride. In 2009, 15 years ago. That was really revolutionary.
Yeah. Well, before that, I was working on that for the Disney cruise ships. Joe Lancicero's team put something called Enchanted Art on the Disney cruise ships.
Yes, it changed throughout the meal and stuff, right?
Well, he did that too, but this was a ship-wide experience where paintings, and I bought a screen, I turned down all the luminosity, I put a lamp in front of it, like a gooseneck lamp, and I had a CG artist create media that also compensated for the brightness of the lamp. And people walked in there and they thought it was a static image, and then it moved. Right. And at that time, this was a while ago, this was groundbreaking, 15 years ago.
It must be so hard and challenging for you, Ryan, to keep pushing the envelope to stay ahead of where culture is in its relation to technology.
It's not hard. It's fun. I mean, this is where people like me, this is how our brains work. You see something there, you see something there, and you go, what if I put those two together? How cool would that be? And then we put a story on it. We could do that here. And, that's what we do every day. So I love that.
I think the hard part is really finding the financing to do it, because the creativity can be there, but it's the people writing the checks that were like, no, we're going to just even hearing your idea of a pirates hotel down in Jamaica, how exciting that would be, but not to pull the trigger on it and move forward. That's got to be somewhat disappointing from that creative side.
Yeah, well, you have to have a visionary client or people who get what we're talking about today, experience economy and what people really want. It's usually not the bean counters, unfortunately, because the MBAs are taught the tried and true, and they look at the spreadsheets and what's happened before. It's kind of like when they opened Hard Rock Cafe and Hard Rock Hotel in Las Vegas. They wanted to do purple gambling tables for blackjack and roulette and craps, and the bean counters, everybody there said, you can't do purple, they're green. Everybody uses green. No one's going to come if you use purple.
Why would somebody not come because of the color of the film?
I have no idea, but there's always...
I was going to bankroll $1 million, but, you got to change the color of that.
I know. There's always the...
I want to be able to lie down on it, and if someone broadcasts, I disappear, I just want the background to disappear. It's so weird. All right. Ryan, you guys still doing the Spirit of Time Zoomcast? I watched a couple episodes.
Yeah.
It's a real...
We're on episode 35, but only our 34th guest, because the great Tony Baxter had so many amazing stories. We gave him two and a half hours.
You would have to.
But only 1 hour. So our next one is actually, we mentioned a new one that we were going to have Bob Gurr, who's kind of a Disney legend, but
also Disney legend, like designed all of the vehicles, like monorails and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Well, he's 92, and unfortunately he had to cancel. So we're going to hopefully do him in the fall. But we have one of my friends, and
funnily enough, he canceled because he was at an all-night rave, not because he's
probably the guy doesn't age.
Dude, seriously. I can't believe just at 92, because I just saw a podcast he did with Tony Baxter.
Yeah.
It had been more than a couple of months old.
Right.
And, he was more active than me,
There's a lot of people more active than you, Glenn.
To be fair, I had my cats, but that's another story.
So the Zeitgeist office in Pasadena is themed like a time travel emporium. And we actually have a full-size time machine like you saw in the 60s movie. And so when it came time, we thought, should we do a podcast? And I don't like to do what anyone else has done. So I said, I'm not doing a podcast. But during COVID, Zoom had become this thing. And I thought, well, what if we get these people on screen live? Our guests can ask questions. We'll have the only archive of live, face interviews in the industry. Nobody's done that before, at least at that time.
Yeah.
And so we said, let's make it like Ebenezer Scrooge went back in time. Those were for negative things, but let's put Tony Baxter on the time machine, take him to his childhood,
That's so cool.
Yeah. When did he know he wasn't going to be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer? What was his first project? What has he learned along the way? So we take people on these time travel journeys, and yeah, we have 34 of them now. And the next one will be Richard Vaughn, who I worked with, just saw him a week ago for the Disney MGM Studios 35-year reunion. But he did Catastrophe Canyon. He worked on Epcot. He did stuff for Sony at the Metreon and in Germany. Just an amazing guy. So, so I highly recommend anyone interested in this, in the wisdom and history of experience design, check it out, because it's a master class by some of the best people in the world.
Nice. That's awesome. Right. And while you're at it, why not plug Zeitgeist Design?
Well, Zeitgeist came out. We're mostly a team of former Disney Imagineers, and we all have the same mindset. We all start with, writing. It has to start with the story. And I usually do an outline or a written narrative once we brainstorm, and we all agree on what it is. That becomes like your Bible of the project. Then we start master planning and drawing and illustrating and, designing what everything looks like. So we're based in Pasadena. It's a boutique company. A lot of us wear many hats. I do concepts, writing, presentations, business development, but we know what we're doing, because most of us have been doing this for 40 plus years.
Wow.
We've been in the fields. We know what can go wrong. We know how to save money, or if you have a limited budget, we can say, okay, that's all you have. Let's be creative here, and let's figure out how to achieve what we want to achieve for that budget.
And a lot of you guys sound like you learned from the people who invented the business.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, well, when I started at Disney in '87, a lot of the guys Walt hired were still there. That's generation one of Imagineer. A lot of the guys who came on for Epcot and Tokyo Disneyland, like Tony, Bob Weiss, Richard, a lot of these people, they were still in their late 20s. I was 20 years old, so they were about 10 years older than me. And so I was kind of the first of the third generation, if you will. And it was just an amazing time to sit with Claude Coates and, all these amazing Mark Davis. And I got to sit with all these guys and just sponge it all up and then get to actually go out in the field with the second generation guys who were just starting to spread their wings. So
unbelievable. And you all may not know those names, but I know those names. I think maybe I should I'll run it right after I run this podcast. One of the coolest interviews I ever did was with the late, great Marty Sklar, where we talked about, he headed the Epcot project. We talked all about that. Incredible, man. This is probably from 10, 12 years ago. I did that interview when I first started podcasting, and I kind of re-edited it for when I started this series.
Yeah, Marty.
Check that out. Ryan Harmon, thank you so much for being here, man. This was fun.
Yes, it was a pleasure. Thanks for sharing all of your great tips in different parks. So hopefully our guests traveling around will be able to experience something different stuff in the United States.
Yeah, whenever people travel, it's always a good idea. I always try to take a day or two, go see the newest experience or exhibit, or, it's so easy to find.
Always do.
Now there's no reason not to. And that way you stay up to date and you tap into the zeitgeist of what's going on in the world.
And your point is over. Right. Thanks so much for being here. You are amazing. And thanks for putting up with me today. And I know you want to hear me just gushing too much, so you're going to want to follow us on all the socials and stuff like that. Download the audio version of this podcast, and then go to novacancynews.com and rewatch it over and over again. Until then, remember, you've got one life, so blaze on, and
follow Glenn's passion.
Yeah, and if you need help figuring out Disney Genie Plus, I'm offering a 12-week long course.